Welcome back to Packs and Picks, and welcome to our first sealed deck build video for Edge of Eternities. In the last video, I opened up 6 packs of the new set, and in this video, I'm going to go over with you the deck that I put together with those cards. So let's jump right in. First thing I wanted to talk about is black. So black is one of the colors that we're not going to play in this deck. I just felt like the black cards wasn't very deep in this pool particularly. We had a couple good removal spells, but other than that, just not a lot of support from black this time around. I did want to talk about 2 cards, one of which is the Entropic Battlecruiser here. This is one of the rares that we got. So a little bit of commentary on Spacecraft and this card in particular. So this is a 4-cost card. When it enters the battlefield, it doesn't have any impact on the game. Once we do put one of the station counters on, we get that ability where whenever our opponent discards a card, they're going to lose 3 life. That would be great if our deck had a lot of discard effects like the Virus Beetle, or there's some other effects that discard cards. But on its own, and in our pool particularly, not a lot of impact. And this can be said for a handful of the Spacecraft in the set. When they come into play, I'm really looking for them to do something. So there's some that dig you up a land or put +1/+1 counters onto creatures. I do like those more than something like the Entropic Battlecruiser, which just kind of sits there until you can get 8+ counters on it. So that's one of the reasons why the Entropic Battlecruiser isn't in the deck. And then another one, kind of similar commentary, is the Fell Grav Ship. So this is a 3-cost Spacecraft. When it enters, we mill 3 cards, and then we can return a creature Spacecraft from our graveyard to our hand. So this one's doing a little bit more, but it is assuming that we're getting something in our graveyard, or we have something there that we want to buy back already. By itself, not doing much to the battlefield. And so this is why I'm a little not excited as much about Spacecraft like the Fell Grav Ship or the Battlecruiser, things that just don't do enough when they hit the battlefield. So just a little commentary on black and the Spacecraft in the set. The other color that we had an option to go with is blue. So I think you could make a good blue-white deck, maybe even a blue-red artifact-themed deck. We did get a couple of the, well, not just a couple, but a few of the multiple spells or second spell cast in a turn cards. We had the Uthros Psionicist. We actually had 3 of the Ilvoy Operatives, and then a couple good cards for casting, cheap cards, cheap cantrips in Mental Modulation. So we had good enablers or good payoffs for the second spell, 2 spells in a turn deck, but this was kind of it as far as the payoffs go. So we've got our 2-cost 2/1 Jellyfish here that are going to get bigger as we cast more spells, but hopefully those spells are going to be things that we're excited to cast and going to impact the board in some way and not just some cantrips over here. So blue almost got there. I did really like this little package that we have here of the 2 spells a turn, but there just wasn't enough payoff in blue, I felt like, to commit to that as a color for our deck. So that's why blue didn't make it this time around. The other color that I did waffle on quite a bit was red, and one of the reasons was around one of our rares here, the Nova Hellkite. So 5-cost 4/5 Flying Haste Dragon. Deals damage when it comes in, and we can warp it in as well for 3 cost. So a 3-cost 4/5 Flying Haste is really great. Don't need to say much about it there. So I really like the Nova Hellkite. I wanted to find red a home, especially because we've got some decent interaction, some burn spells, things like Bombard, Orbital Plunge, Plasma Bolt, Galvanizing Sawship. This is a Spacecraft that I do think is decent. It's not, blowing my socks off or anything, but it's a 6-cost 3+ or 6-cost 6/5 Spacecraft, but its station is only 3+. So when you're getting into that middle late end of the game, the chances that you've got a 3-power creature that's been outclassed that could tap to station this Sawship that could then get in for 6 damage on the same turn you play it, I think is pretty possible. So that's why I do like the Sawship a little bit more than some of those black Spacecraft we looked at earlier. And then aside from that, we did have some good artifacts and a couple Pangolins. We had a couple Mechans and a Scrapper. So we did have some artifact synergies. And then we did have Sami Ship's Engineer. So a red-white legendary. Cares about tapped creatures. If we were going to play red, I think we would go red-white. And we'll see some of the white cards here in a minute. And that's why I think we would go with red-white, so we could unlock a little bit of synergy with Sami. So that's the red build here. Keep that in mind as we look at the ultimate version of the deck that I ended up with, which you can guess by process of elimination is green-white. So I'll go ahead and lay that out right now, and we'll talk about some of the cards in this version of the deck. So we're just laying it out by curve, and I like to try to separate it out by spells or non-creatures down at the bottom and creatures up at the top. All right, so here's the deck we're going to go with is green and white. So a couple of the things that I like about green and white, we do have some good interaction in the form of things like reroute systems. We've got a Melt Strider's Resolve. We've got a fight effect. In the 3-drop slot, we've got Banishing Light, classic, and we have 2 Diplomatic Relations, so a one-sided fight effect. So I really liked the amount of interaction, removal spells that we had in green and white. We also have a Radiant Strike up here at 4. We also get to play some of our rares, so we've got Halia, Guided by Light. She's one of our rares, 3 cost 3/3, a little bit of life gain synergies in her. We also get to play our Mythic in Uraboroid, so this is a card that I think is really cool. 4 costs 1/3, but as long as it survives even just one turn getting into combat, or getting to your combat phase for one turn, it starts to get out of control really quickly. So we want to get Uraboroid on the battlefield and have it stick for at least one turn to get some payoff. So I like Uraboroid quite a bit. One thing, or one of the gaps that I do see with this deck, because we do have a handful of fight effects, I like to see more maybe disproportionately static creatures, things like a 4/2 or a 3/1s that we can really use for those fight effects. But we've got just normal size creatures here, a lot of 2/2s and 3/3s. So we're not going to get too much of the reach, I would say, as far as being able to take out a really big creature with a smaller costed creature with our fight effects. But that just means we're going to have to play a little bit smarter. Now, one thing that I am going to try in this deck is the Seriema. We talked about spacecrafts earlier. This is a 3-cost spacecraft. When it enters, we can search our library for a legendary creature and put it into our hand. Now, in this deck, we only have 2 legendaries, and that's the reason why I'm going to try the Seriema. So we've got 2 targets in the form of our Halia, which we saw earlier, and the other form of Halia, Ascendant Cadet. So we've got 2 targets for the Seriema. I'm not sure if that's enough to make this card worth it in Limited. It does get to be a 5/5 flyer with 7+ station counters on it. I'm not really banking on that too much for Spacecraft, but we'll see how the Seriema plays. We do have some options out of the sideboard if we decide that this just isn't giving us the payoff that we want. So this is kind of one slot that we're going to try in the deck and see how it goes. That being said, out of the sideboard, there is one card that we've got here in Pinnacle Star Cage. So this cares about exiling a lot of creatures with mana value 2 or less. So I put this in the Star Cage in the sideboard to start out, just because we don't know if our opponent's going to be playing a lot of 2-cost things or ways for us to synergize with our own 2-cost things. So this is going to be in the sideboard to start out. It happens to cost 3, just like the Seriema. So if we decide that Spacecraft isn't going to work for us, then we can use the Star Cage out of the sideboard. And that's it. That's our first deck for Edge of Eternities. Let me know what you think about this seal pool. Let me know what you think about this deck. Would you have gone with a blue-white deck, a red-blue deck, something else from the pool? Let me know down in the comments. And of course, let me know your thoughts on the set overall. And stick around because we'll have more pack openings and more limited content coming to you soon. See you then.